This podcast is part of the Shareable Podcast Network. Learn more at shareable.fm. Not every guest takes me up on the opportunity, but I like to do a segment called The Mic Swap, where I make my guest into the host, and then I become the guest. I let them take the conversation wherever they want to take it, ask me whatever they want, and it's a lot of fun, I think. This is Mic Swap.
This is Jeffrey Shaw. I'm here with Jeff Gibbard, Superhero Institute, and I have some questions. So, Jeff, what is something I want to really get to know? I know so much about you. I know it's in your heart. I know a little bit of business, but what is something that no matter how tired you are before you begin, you have more energy when you finish?
Cooking.
Really?
Yeah. Cooking is probably, so the question makes me think like, well, if it's something that requires physical exertion, I'm likely not going to feel more energized after. So one of my other guts was snowboarding because I love being on the mountain, but I wouldn't be necessarily more energized after if I was kind of tired going into it. But cooking is the most meditative thing that I do. When I start doing prep work and I start thinking about what I'm making and I start thinking about the timing, I'm instantly in flow state and I get lost in it. And I come out of it always feeling better. It's like a place that I go to just center myself and feel better.
Yeah. I think it's the flow state, right? It's that flow state that somehow there's this weird paradox between calmness and exhilaration when you're in flow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you've ever done a Russian Turkish bath. Have you ever done that?
I have not. I've been to Japanese baths, but
so it's sort of like you probably have seen people in a hot tub and then they jump in snow.
Yes.
So a Russian Turkish bath is like a ridiculously hot sauna. That's the Russian part. And then you come out, it's like, I don't know, temperature, it's like a ridiculous temperature. And then you come out and you do a 40-degree cold water plunge. And the effect is profound. I actually say it's the ideal state of mind for success, and that you have a way that you're highly energized, but you're clear thinking and calm at the same time. Has a great effect. All right. So you've been a dad now for how many months?
It's 9 months. About
9 months. God,
Yep.
I was going to say 7. I was a little off. So 9 months. So what have you learned from your little superhero? Because as a parent myself, our children are our greatest teachers. So what have you learned about being a superhero in that little superhero daughter of yours?
There's so many things. I think one, I'm just fascinated by humans now. Like the fact that like our parents, like the first time I held her, I thought about my dad holding me and I was like, wow, this has got to be a head trip for him seeing me at 40. So like every little thing she does is magic. Like every little thing makes me think like, wow, like life moves so fast and we don't take enough time to really appreciate like little moments, right? Like she started doing this thing recently where when she wants my attention, I'll be in the kitchen cooking or something like that. And I'm not paying attention. And she'll just like tilt her head to the side and start smiling. And then she'll see me and she just like kind of loses it with happiness. And like nobody taught her that. And it's like a new thing. And it's a thing that one day is going to be gone. When she tries to give me kisses, she just puts her whole mouth over my nose and it's really wet. And there's going to come a day where there's going to be a last time that she does that because she's like, oh, that's not how I give dad a kiss. That, that's just weird. And then that's gone. And it's a thing that just like melts my soul when it happens. So I would say learning to, or maybe just being reminded to appreciate little things more is kind of one of the big things that came out of it. I think the other thing is that I have noticed in myself that I have more of a capability to shift my emotional state than I thought I did. So for instance, at the beginning of parenthood, you're very tired. You don't get to sleep a lot, whatever. So you might be in a really like just awful mood because you're like going to take this kid's crying. Why are they crying? Like you're mad. And then you just get in there and they look at you and like all of a sudden you're like, I get it. It's fine.
That's
right?
one of the coolest observations I've ever heard about parenting. Totally get it. The ability to just pivot your emotion. Yeah.
In an instant. Like there have been multiple times where I'm mad about something else, overwhelmed at work, I'm cranky, my back hurts, something. And she's going off about something, the baby. Like, and then I come into the room and I see her and she stops crying and she just looks at me and she smiles and I'm like, we're good. We're good. There's nothing else to do. Emotions changed. And I guess what occurs to me is that if it can change because of that external stimuli, it can just as easily turn because of an internal decision.
100%. And you will find yourself shifting your emotions that way for the benefit of your family, you find you start doing for other reasons in your life, business and otherwise too, because you realize you can, in fact, you have to shift that. And I'll tell you what, as far as those things that you're loving happening last month, I think I cried the whole last year before my son went off to college, like the whole last year before he left, because everything was the last time. This is our last time to go to the movies. Everything was the last time. I think I cried for the whole year. And then he was gone for 2 weeks and I'm like, this is kind of awesome. Like I realized how much I really liked my freedom. So I was a single father. So I was I kind of like this. Didn't take long to shift.
People keep saying stuff to me like, oh, it's not going to be long before you're walking her down the aisle. And I'm like, you need to shut your mouth.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Don't think that far ahead yet. Yeah.
It's like, let me
just do not go see Toy Story 3. It'll kill you. All right. So as much as that, so it has another, I think, interesting effect. And you mentioned being 40. I think you're like 41 or something. I think
I'm turning 41 in May.
Yeah, I thought we were pretty close to that. I remember you turning 40, and I'm kind of curious as to where you're on the pendulum of. I hate to say it this way, like a pendulum of mortality, because I find that there's this weird place we get to. And it's something I've always admired about the millennial generation. Like I've always said, the millennial generation has a unique relationship with mortality because there's a way in which they embrace you only live once. Mm-hmm. So they totally got mortality. And yet that instead of that being dreadful, they live their life more fully. They don't take jobs they're not happy with. They want to travel and see the world. They don't stay in relationships that don't make them happy. Like I love how their awareness of mortality made them live more. And that's a bit of a paradox. So I'm kind of curious now that you're a dad yourself and you're at this point in your life about to turn 41, where are you on this pendulum of awareness of mortality and living fully?
So funny enough, I'm what I think is considered a zennial, which is like I'm like right outside millennial, and I'm in that bridge between X and millennial. Yeah. And I actually, everything that you just described is basically how I have seen my life since my mid-teens. So I had a pivotal life-changing kind of moment at like 13, where I was like kind of in like that like the preteen to early teen. Like angst, like I was a little depressed. I had like all these things going on. I was like really into like girls and like, I was like very like, I don't want to say mature for my age, but like I was like thinking like bigger, heavier thoughts at like 12 than I probably should have. And I saw Dead Poets Society. And the entire theme of that movie is basically like, you never know when your day is up. Like you only have one life, seize the day. And like, as trite as the whole Carpe Diem thing has become, like at the time that like really struck me. And there's all of these scenes with like, these people are no longer alive. Like who remembers them, this and that. And it like really motivated me early on to like take control and try to make something of my life worth leaving behind. Like legacy at like 14 became an idea for me. So I've always been driven by the idea that you never know when the end is coming for you. Like we all assume we're going to live into our 80s and 90s healthy, but you never know. And actually one of the things that like put a big old stamp and an exclamation point on that is that on my last day of high school, my mother got into a catastrophic car accident and spent 8 hours on the operating table, like traumatic brain injury. She survived, but she was never the same for the next like 20 some odd years of my life. I partly was helping to like take care of her, and she just was never the same. And it just happened in an incident. It was a car accident, and it just happened out of nowhere. So you never know if your body of work is complete. Like I look at like the book that, I have due out coming in next January and all the things I'm working on, all the goals and things I have. And, in terms of like thinking about the mortality, especially when you pair it together with like having a daughter, I've tried to eat healthier. I've tried to be healthier and try to extend the likelihood that I'm going to live healthy into my old age to like, see her get married and all of those things or whatever she chooses to do in her life. But in terms of how it's affected me for my bucket listy type goals, I've kind of always been that guy from like a real long time. I've been driven by this idea of you only get one.
Yeah, it's so important. I think it's something I think younger generations had. I mean, my mom is 83 years old, and she had to be like 78 or something when I finally convinced her to do a will, because to her to look at that meant she was going to die. Yeah. So not want to look at it. And I think there's a way in which you look at your mortality. And I think it's so important now, because I really believe we're going to have people making some major lifestyle changes. Because as cliche it is, life is short, it's unpredictable. I find in my own life, I've swung both pendulum. My father died at 52 years old when I was 20. My brother died last year at 59. My cousin died at 44. I have young deaths around me. And when I turned 52, which is the age my father died, I actually had to call my financial planner and say, I am so not ready for retirement. I realized that subconsciously, I never expected to live very long. So I hadn't really prepared for it. And then suddenly when I made it past that cusp, I was like, holy damn, I might actually be around for another 30 years. I better be prepared for that. And now I'm convinced I'm going to live to 100. So I'm all good. Like if I put it in my mind, that's my goal. So there's a way in which that's a tricky thing to do, right? We hold the reality that life is short and unpredictable. And on the other hand, you may as well set your highest goal possible so that you're living fully. Not an easy thing to do, but Jeff, you're nailing it. I can only imagine the legacy you're leaving behind for your daughter and any additional kids that you may or may not have. I don't know about, but it's you're leaving a major legacy. And I will tell you now that, because my father died young and I was young, he had never told me he was proud of me, which is why I started a social media movement called I'm Proud of You Day on my birthday. And, but I tell you, there's nothing better. The better goal is when you get to a point in life when your kids say they're proud of you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You can't. I never had a goal to. I mean, I always had a goal to have my father tell me he was proud of me, and he never did. And then we ran out of time. I never even set a goal for my kids to tell me they're proud of me, and now they're in all in their 20s, and they tell me they're proud of me. I'm like, it melts you beyond. I never even set it as a goal.
I can't even imagine. I just get a smile and I melt. If my daughter told me she was proud of me, I would be like,
you just wait. It makes you melt. But Jeff, you're doing some awesome things. And without a doubt, everything about you is very shareable.